Get Pucked. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Get Pucked podcast. Vito and Matt here with you tonight, or today, whenever you're listening. We got some things we're going to talk about. We might branch a little bit off the Habs, but always kind of keep it as related as possible. But they've been pretty quiet as late, so there has been a couple things across the NHL I think we want to talk about. Probably most prevalent, I suppose, would be the recent trade that happened with our good friends of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Don't call them good friends. Don't call them good friends.
So they acquire Ryan O'Reilly, right? So Ryan O'Reilly, and he's already played a game. He got his first game in, and of course it was against the Habs. And while I do not believe he got a point, could be wrong. I don't think so. He played a decent enough game. What do you think of the trade, man? Like, all in all, like, do you think it's a good move? Is this the Kyle Dubas swinging for the fences, as some people were saying? Some people are saying, like, what are they doing grabbing a forward like that again? This is like a Foligno 2.0. Why didn't they try to get defense?
No. This isn't the Foligno 2.0. Ryan O'Reilly has always had more talent than Nick Foligno. We're not even going to go there. When I first saw the trade, my first reaction was that, you know what, this has the potential of being a very good trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're looking at a guy who, while he was struggling in St. Louis this year, I wouldn't say that his entire game just fell off out of nowhere. Yeah, he's a bit older, but he's not super old. He's still in his early 30s. He can still do something, still contribute. He's got that playoff pedigree. He's won the Stanley Cup. He knows what it takes, and you know what? It's definitely for the Leafs. It's a very good addition in that sense. The question is, the good thing about it actually is more that he doesn't have to be the guy like he kind of was in St. Louis, right? He doesn't. I know they have Jordan Kyrou and they got Robert Thomas down the middle and all that, but it's still like you still had Ryan O'Reilly as being the face in a sense for the Blues. Now he could just go to the Toronto Maple Leafs, be a part of the team, be a piece to that puzzle, and see what can happen there. You know, like I saw the last couple of games, and he's done well. I don't know where they're gonna slot him from now till the end of the season. There's still, you could see that they're experimenting.
2C, no? Isn't he 2C?
Well, because they shifted Tavares to the left, but even there, like, that's weird for me. Right? I'm not so sure I would have done that, but I guess they're looking at the fact that Ryan O'Reilly, his two-way game and his defensive abilities and all that, then maybe they prefer that as a person in the middle and have Tavares focus on the offensive side of things. Perhaps, I'm not sure.
What do you think about the returns? Like from the St. Louis standpoint of things, right? Do you think they got enough for him?
Yeah. Well, I think they did get enough for him. You know, a lot of people probably they got the first. They got they got some players there too. Like, what more do you want for a person who's on a contract year?
He's a rental. It's a pure rental.
Yeah,
a lot of people are saying that he might go back to St. Louis next year.
He might. I'm sure he loved his experience in St. Louis. I mean, he did win a cup there, but at the same time, he also, we'll see what happens with Toronto, right? If there's success, if they manage to get out of that first round and finally get into the second round, maybe they're going to want to keep him after. Who knows if the money makes sense? But they got a first-round pick out of it. And while it is a late first-round pick, it's still a first-round pick for basically a rental, and somebody that was having a tougher year in comparison to the previous years. And you don't know if this was officially the start in the decline. I mean, he's definitely more of a mold of the older NHL in a sense than today's NHL.
Yeah.
So he's never been the guy.
I don't know, man. Like, it's weird. I find it odd. Like I know when O'Reilly was being shopped around at one given point a couple years ago, and there was like always the Habs attached to it, and could he come here and stuff, and I was psyched about it. Ryan O'Reilly is a really good player, and I've always really liked him. I just find that at this point in his career, given the need of that team, I think that's what perplexes me the most. You look at that team and you're like, they don't need a Ryan O'Reilly player. They can get some more role players that might suit them better on a third and fourth line, bolster that secondary. But I mean, the glaring hole for them is defense. They need a better defense. What do they do? Or you can even make the argument about goaltending, a little bit harder to acquire.
No, they need to address the goaltending too, because
how and where?
They
Who are they
can't
going to
keep
grab?
they're you know what? I don't know off the top of my head who'd be available. I mean,
They rolled the dice with Tandem.
the names
That
that
was
are
their
out
move.
the names that are out there from goaltending perspective. I mean, I'm not so sure that I would jump on that, but maybe that's the issue. Maybe they should try to make an offer to a team that it's not a common name that's out there. James Reimer is not a solution. Forget that. He's not a solution for that team because he's a name that's out there. Apparently,
No,
he's rumored to be moved, so he's not for
been
the
there, done
Leafs.
that. Been there, done
But
that.
the more pressing position will probably be defense. They need
Well,
some
there's at
grit.
least, but
Bring in
there's
some
guys
grit
out there
on
like they
paper.
could have done it. That's what I'm saying. I find it a very strange trade. I'm not necessarily saying that it was a bad trade. I'm not saying that it might not play dividends for them in the long run. I think fundamentally, and
I
again, I
think
don't want to go too much longer on the Toronto Maple Leafs because I'm already kind of like getting to the point with them. They got enough coverage in this country, but I'm more curious. I mean, O'Reilly was a big name that was out there. Tarasenko was a big name that was out there. Both these guys are off the board. So to pivot and kind of bring this back to the Habs, does O'Reilly being moved affect anything with any of the players that are on the roster today that were potentially to be moved from the Canadiens? Like, does this have a factor at all?
the only factor it may have, and that depends if he can literally get at least a game or two to show he's healthy, is Monahan.
Monahan.
If
Yeah.
Monahan can come back on time, and play at least a game or two before the official NHL trade deadline, then maybe, just maybe, it'll give just enough value that we could still get a decent return for him. Because at the end of the day, Ryan O'Reilly, teams like Colorado were supposedly interested in him too, and they didn't get him.
Yep.
The Toronto Maple
Yep.
Leafs did. So, um, you know, if Monahan can get back, maybe you get a decent return at maybe last minute. But right now the concern is, so we did see him skating recently.
Yep.
But
He's
and now
slowly working his way back.
there's rumors there that his injury is a groin strain. But who knows really? Uh, Groins are tricky, but at the same time, that would be it. That's how it would affect Montreal. Those two
Well,
players moving, it's a Monahan factor.
So let's talk about that, because another thing you like on the topic of Monahan and the guys from the Canadiens that potentially could be moved. Some interesting. I forgot who was it. Jeff Merrick. I think it was Jeff Merrick. Wrote or tweeted something out to the effect of, expect the Canadiens to be very quiet this trade deadline, and that ruffled a lot of people's feathers quite a bit. And they're like, how could they be? They got all these guys, yada yada yada. So let's throw a hypothetical. Let's say they're super quiet. That injuries just plague them. Monahan isn't back. Edmondson is too hurt. There is no market for Savard, or they don't want to move him for whatever reason. Josh Anderson, no one's biting. Another rumor also about that. Apparently, only in Montreal is Josh Anderson being coveted by everybody. Apparently, somebody asked around, and it's not so much. So who knows about that either? Let's say they do nothing at all. Would you be upset about that? Like, forget it. Once you get over the initial disappointment of the excitement about it, if they do nothing, knowing all the contracts that are coming off the books, knowing that they kind of already got paid for Monahan, Anderson might be an integral part of this team moving forward in the mind and the vision of Gorton and Hughes. So maybe he was never even being moved unless if like an insane offer or whatever. Like what would you feel about it?
Listen, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be too happy because it would be a little on the boring side, but injuries have plagued this team this year.
It's brutal.
And unfortunately, the injuries might dictate what the Habs do on trade deadline. If Edmondson were here, maybe he'd be getting moved, even though we keep hearing that they'd want to keep him for leadership purposes and so on. We did have Pagnotta on the last episode, and he did mention that there was traction there on Edmondson, and maybe that's what he means. Maybe there is traction there, but teams are wanting to see, could he get back?
Well, there's a lot of talk about potential trades and like clauses in it. Like, you'll get a first if he achieves X amount of games for us, or stuff like this, right? Because they might be able to move these.
Given the Habs situation, they'd have to.
They'd have to. Yeah.
If all of a sudden it's a conditional first round pick to get Monahan, which I don't even think that's what it would be anymore. But let's just say hypothetically speaking, conditional first, if he's able to play the remainder of the season, barring some extreme injury or whatever the case may be, or he plays at least 4 games of the playoffs, then it becomes a first. So, just something weird of that nature.
I imagine it has to be
That,
something like that
they'd
too.
have to
Yeah,
take that gamble. That's
yeah.
not even a question. If to hold out on somebody with the walk at the end of the season anyway, just because you don't know, you don't want a condition on your pick, no, do it. Would I trade Drouin and retain salary like some of the rumors just to get a 4th or 5th round pick or 6th round pick? I don't know. At that point, we need the body anyways. You might as well play him. Like, who cares? Some people are gonna say, "Hey, I'd rather get something than nothing." You need a body anyway.
I mean, we could just keep calling up everybody from the Rocket. I mean, you got half the roster up here already. Throw another body.
No, whatever. You can't keep doing that either. Like, if Drouin, you know what? If we can't move Drouin, or if we do move Drouin for 4, like, what's that gonna do for you? Really, that's my question to you. What does getting
Bottom
a 4th
line,
or 5th round pick?
if you're asking me, I mean, would I move Drouin for a 4th? I mean, he's actually been playing pretty well. I mean, I would almost could fight and say it might be a tiny bit more than that. But let's say the 4th was all you can get.
No.
Yeah, I think you do it. I think you do it because at the end of the day, he'll leave and you'll get nothing for him. I mean, why wouldn't you do it? It's a lost season.
To me,
just do it.
Your expectations there, it's like you showing up late to the party and hoping that the main course is still there. You know what I mean? Like, it's done. Like, there's nothing. You're getting the scraps, and I don't want it. I don't want it.
You can't look at it as scraps because like I can use the same sort of a food analogy where, like, well, if you're a starving person, the scraps is like a full meal. If you're there and you had all these expectations that you were going to go to this banquet and I got players for first and whatever, left, right, and center, and everybody's hurt and you're now going to get nothing, you might as well move some of these guys and get some stuff. Drouin could. I mean, yeah, okay, I'm pumping the tires a little bit as a salesman here. He could slot on a second line on a team, third line even, and he could strike gold. He has the skill. You're telling me a team is not going to want to roll the dice for a guy like that if they're looking to bolster some offense?
Not for a second, not for a third.
Not for a second because his track record is crap. That is unfortunate. And of course, he's injured too and everything else that's been going on with him. But a third? A late third? It's not possible?
I don't see it. No, listen, has his value gone up maybe a little bit in the last few games because he's on that? What does he have? Like, what is it? Like 8 assists or something like that in his last 9 games, or 6 assists in his last 7 games, something like that. Like, maybe.
Yeah, he's trending decent. I mean, yes. I mean, we all know we're talking Drouin, and we're not going to change our tune about him. There's been many episodes you can go back and look through and find our opinion about Drouin and how his tenure here is very much done. And I stand by that. But at the same time, you got to tip your hat and give dues where they are merited. And he's been playing very well. And given the fact that the guys that they wanted to unload are hurt, or like a Dantonov who's been incredibly underwhelming, you could pivot and look at a guy like Drouin. It's possible.
The only players I can see right now bringing anything of value to Montreal that are playing, not that are injured and we're not sure, not Monan, is Josh Anderson and Jake Allen. Those are 2 guys that a lot of fans are clamoring that, move them because by the time Montreal gets competitive, they're going to be at a certain point in their careers where we're going to be looking at their contracts and be like, okay, that's a bit rough. But that's about it. Everybody else is not going to bring you a return or fetch you a return that you're going to be looking and say, yeah, this is, like last year with Toffoli, with Lehkonen, with Sherrod.
Yeah,
we're not getting
that's
that's not happening.
If anyone listening thinks that we're going to get a trade deadline like we did last year, I got news for you. Obviously, you haven't been paying attention because nobody's throwing out first like they were doing last year. They learned from their mistakes. They saw what happened to Florida.
It's just a different draft year.
It's and the caliber, the top 10 of this year is a very different top 10 than it was last year. So no, I don't suspect that's going to happen.
If Kent Hughes is able somehow to get a first-round pick during this trade deadline, it's a success, or a first-round pick equivalent. If he's able to get either one,
I'm almost prepared to throw out Miracle at this point.
Then that's a success. You doesn't matter what the entire package is, but that would be a success. Like it's the players that most fans want the Habs to move are not easy moves to make. You have to sell it. You have to make it enticing. You have to probably take something back. You might have to give something. A lot of players want Byron's contract move. There's no benefit to a team to do it. The Habs are gonna have to pay. A lot of people are,
and
talking
that's
about
not a
Josh
trade
Anderson.
deadline move. That's not a trade
No,
deadline move.
Jake
So
Allen,
yeah, forget
Edmondson,
that.
Sean Monahan, who else? Dadanov, Hoffman. They're not easy moves to make. Hoffman might fetch you something. Um, considering that he has an additional year on his contract, teams might be attracted to that at
He's
$4.5
the
million.
only one,
But
which is
I don't know.
hilarious at this point. He's the only guy that I can see maybe moving on the trade deadline. The only one. Because of the history of what he had, because GMs have strange memories and they're very selective, and they'll probably look at this guy as a power play specialist, like we kind of thought he'd be when he came here. He's been playing a little bit better of late, but I can see him maybe and no first. Forget first. That wouldn't happen.
No. I would think,
but I can maybe
Savard.
see him move. I can maybe see him move.
I
But
think
besides
more
him,
Savard.
if they're not going to do conditions on Monahan, if he can't come back and do a couple games, if Edmondson can't come back and show he doesn't have any of the back problems anymore, I can't see teams rolling the dice with that. I really can't. And so yes, I think while to your point, I think it'd be boring and it would suck because there was a lot of high expectations about potentially getting that other first for this year. I'm expecting it to be quiet for the Canadiens at this trade deadline at this given point. It sucks, but
I won't say it's quiet. I think there's going to be some moves that are going to happen right down to the wire. And my prediction would be that David Savard gets moved.
That's a bold take, man. I don't know. I mean, I know we kind of talked about it with Dave Pagnotta last episode, and like, is there rumblings about him? I know I'm not plugged into everybody. I don't pretend to be an insider, but I have not seen much of anything.
Dude, he would be a good fit on a lot of
I don't
playoff
disagree.
teams that are missing a right-handed guy who can stabilize the defense on the third pairing.
But let's say
you should not have him plugged in as your second pairing guy.
No, for sure. He'd be a third pairing on a contending team, but I just got to think about it from the Canadiens' perspective. I saw the stats earlier today, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but like when you look at total games played for rookie defensemen per team,
109.
Yeah, they're obscenely in first place. Like they're 209. The second place team is like 50 or something. How do you get rid of like the only other veteran? If Edmondson is going to be hurt for a prolonged period of time, you're going to have 6 rookies. Who's going to play? You need some leadership.
Yeah, at that point, Kovacevic would be your veteran.
Or Weidman gets in. He's the veteran. Yeah.
So assuming Savard and Edmondson get moved, or maybe maybe that's why Savard would get moved. Maybe they couldn't move Edmondson because he's not fully healthy, but they can get value for Savard. Maybe, and that's what you keep Eddie, but we're moving Savard. But yes, let's say
I find it crazy.
Both are gone. You have Kovacevic and Weidman become your veterans for this year.
Please, yeah. No, I can't see it. But you know what? Something that is fascinating, given the talk about all the injuries that we do have, just to pivot, because it's something that I think is pretty silver lining, if you will. A lot of people are saying the season has been pretty bleh, and given all the injuries, and we lost, watching Slafkovsky's in his first year, and we lost the Caulfield race to maybe 40 goals, and like all these little things that we were kind of like just watching, and as the season was progressing. The silver lining to me would be we got extended looks at guys who were knocking at the door. I'm talking about the Raffi Harvey-Pinards. I'm talking about the Ylonens, Bazil's up. Guys. I know. He's not gonna be there, but just saying he's there, and he's
31 years old. He's not knocking on the door.
He got his first goal. He just got his first goal.
Yeah. By the way, so did Ryan O'Reilly. Got his first goal as a Leaf.
There you go. Guys like Anthony Richard got a call. I mean, the looks that these guys are getting, in particular, Raffi Harvey-Pinard, who is playing on the top line right now. Okay, he's not going to be a top line there, but it's a pretty crazy story. I mean, at what point do you start looking at this and saying it's not luck anymore? Like, he's producing almost every game between all the goals, which, if I'm not mistaken, in the 8 games or whatever, 9 games that he's been up, he's already like 7th in scoring or something on the team. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, say that goes both ways. It's impressive for him, and it's abysmal for the entire team. But do you take any solace in that? Any kind of like, you look at the silver lining and be like, you know what? I think this kid has earned a spot. I'm now penciling him in. He's going to be on opening night roster next year. Ylonen might also be opening night roster next year, because I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, once you ditch out players that could be traded, might be traded if they weren't injured before, and all the guys on expiring contracts, they got a lot of holes to fill, man. They got a lot of players that they got to get there, and they can't sign everybody. They're going to have to move people up. Does it make you feel a little bit more comfortable?
It will depend on what they do in the offseason. But if you're telling me that next year we're starting and Rafi Harvey Pinard is in our top 6,
I don't think it'd be top 6. I don't think it'd be top 6.
I'll be very concerned for the Habs season next year again.
I
think the biggest,
but he's playing well.
concern for me as a fan of both hockey and the Habs is something's got to be looked into on how we go 2 seasons in a row with so many injuries. There's something up there.
So you're one of those guys who think that we have to analyze the medical staff here?
I mean, last year was like, okay, fine. What do you want to say to that, right? Last year, looking at it, it's like, okay, it's just a bad year. Now, fast forward to this year, it's happening again. I'm not saying to look at the medical staff, but something's up there, man. It can't be that all these players are getting hurt as badly as they're getting hurt.
I think if you're going to scrutinize anything, and it's important to note, it's not. I mean, anything can happen and players can get hurt. I think the more interesting thing is the rehabbing. Why does it take so long for guys to come back? And when they come back, why does it seem like they're not ready? And then they get quickly injured again. That to me is the weird part about it. It would seem like when other guys on other teams get hurt, they disappear for weeks and they come back and they're fine and everything was good again.
I think that's just players, Matt. I think players, they tell the doctors or whatever, yeah, I feel good. I feel good. Okay, they check, visibly maybe on an X-ray or an MRI, things look fine. But yeah, I feel good. And in reality, they probably should have given themselves an extra week or 2. It's the player in them to get back on the ice, to be with their teammates and whatever the case.
If the medical staff is relying on their word, guys who are desperate to play,
no, but it's not
they all should be fired.
It's not. I'm not only saying that, but it's like, I've had my ankle surgeries and whatnot, and there's times where I look and say, yeah, I feel better. I feel good that day. And you go that day that you do feel better, and you have an athlete that goes, yeah, I feel better that day. They go, they get the green light to go and play, and you know what? Maybe I wasn't quite ready yet. And unfortunately, that's when an injury strikes.
But that should be at the end. It's like, if you're saying if a doctor says you need 6 weeks recovery, and after 4 weeks you're like, doc, I feel good, and the doc tests you around and stuff and says, yeah, you're looking good and this is very good progress, you should still sit another 2 weeks, because that's the recommendation. If they let them play after 4 weeks and then they go back and they hurt it and now they're out for like 6 months, that is not the player's fault. That is the medical staff's fault, because they should have shut them down, coaching staff included. A player is always going to want to play.
Well, then that's the point I'm getting at, right? They're always going to want to play. So as the moment they feel a little bit better, they're gonna tell the doctor, yeah, I'm good to go. And then doctor looks, okay, you're young, whatever. The thing is that the injuries that we're seeing the Habs having,
a lot of knee injuries, I find.
There's been a lot of knee and shoulder. Now that seems to be the new one. Shoulder.
Yeah,
it's
shoulder also.
Take time. It's these injuries that take time to heal, and they never, depending who and what, it doesn't always heal properly. So a doctor says 4 to 6 weeks. Give that player that 7th week. Take an additional week,
sure.
Especially in a lost season like this. Just take that additional week. What's it going to do?
It's I don't know. I think I'm not as conspiracy theorist perhaps as some of the other people out there, that there's some sort of like nefarious thing going on behind the scenes, or some people are like, oh, the sheer incompetency. By all accounts, the medical staff in Montreal is one of the best ever, like top in the league is what you hear.
Let's go with the Montreal Canadiens. Maybe not the
What did I
entire
say?
medical system of
No,
Montreal.
yeah, no, I'm talking about the team. No. Oh, please, let's not talk about the city. But yeah, no, from the team's perspective. So I'm going to put stock in what I hear from people who are a little bit more in the know than random Joe Blow sitting at home just being like, "Oh, I think there's something wrong with this team," and nah.
But
However,
you
you
really do gotta
gotta
raise
at
an
least,
eyebrow. Yeah, you gotta
yes,
raise
you
an
gotta
eyebrow a little
raise an
bit.
eyebrow. You gotta raise an eyebrow, and somebody should at least ask the question, and you should have either the head, if it's Dr. Mulder, or somebody should come out and be like, listen, let's explain how we do things. We give the green light only when the green light and we're 100% sure, and things happen. They go back out, and it just so happens the guy had a busted ankle, and we rehabbed his ankle, and the first game back, he takes a slap shot to the ankle. What are you going to do? These things happen. Yes, they do. You know, I want transparency. I just want somebody to come out and outright say, like, this is the case, and not so much like, yeah, it's another season and it's unlucky and whatever. Because you're right, you got to raise an eyebrow just a little bit, not with pitchforks and go after the medical staff, but you got to kind of sit there and be like, it's a little bit odd.
Okay,
2 years in a row.
let me ask you. This is one question. It's a rapid fire question. From now till trade deadline, which is just a few
Okay.
days away, who's a must go for you?
On the Canadiens?
Yeah.
A must go.
Or at the very least, who do you expect to be moved? Doesn't matter what the return is.
Well, sadly, I'm now leaning more into the boat that I don't know if they're going to move anybody. But if I had to pick one, I guess I'd say Mike Hoffman. He's the only one that I still think has value. He's not hurt. He's playing. He's playing decently well. He can be a secondary offensive threat on a team. If he can retap into whatever he seemed to have forgotten on how to do power play stuff, he could be a power play guy for a certain team. That would be the one guy that I think has a tinge of value. And I couldn't even begin to tell you what the returns might be, but that would be the guy, because I can't see the Monahan thing happening. It's just if he was healthy enough, he'd be back already. The Edmondson thing too. I mean, we're close, man. We're like 2 weeks away. He's just starting to come back, no contact. I don't think he makes it back in time. And those would have been the two main guys I would have said. I don't see Jake Allen moving. I don't see Anderson moving. Dandanov, I don't think is going to move either. Even if you retain, I just don't think there's any interest. Drouin, maybe, but
That's
again,
one guy. You're naming the whole team again.
I'm just going through it. I'm just giving you my thought process real fast. So Mike Hoffman, there you go.
Mike Hoffman's your guy. Okay.
Mike Hoffman is the guy. If I had to pick one.
I don't know, man. I could be wrong, and I know they like him. Yeah, I know they like him, but
I don't think so.
I feel like there's a possibility there that's Savard. I mean, listen, there's scouts coming and watch the Habs for a reason, and they know Sean Monahan and Edmondson are not on the ice.
The reason is they're doing their job. That's the reason.
I guess.
I mean,
no, I'm gonna say it's Savard. I feel like Savard. It's not the first time he's been moved just ahead of the playoffs to teams. I think he's the guy.
Hey man, he's a gave a first round pick to get.
You're not getting a first round pick.
I'm not saying get a first. I'm just saying he did get a first.
That's a first for David Savard again.
Impossible.
I'm like at this point, just forget celebrating a Stanley Cup win. That's the Stanley Cup. We'll just celebrate it.
Celebrate Kent Hughes.
Celebrate
Build
Kent
him at a
Hughes.
statue outside the Bell Center. Right then and there.
He's the guy. He's the guy.
I agree. Listen, I think ultimately, while there was a lot of excitement leading up to the trade deadline, I mean, now it's not so much excitement. I think it's more nervousness. I think fans are a little bit anxious and nervous now leading up to it. Like, what can happen within the next 2 weeks? Will one of these guys come back, get a couple games in? I think that's where we're more at than the sort of optimistic, oh, we got all these guys and we can get rid of them and we can get more picks and prospects and oh my God. So we'll wait and see. As we get closer and closer and we record our episode next week, we'll see if there's been some traction between now and then with any of the guys coming back. And of course, we'll be mentioning on social media. Please take a look there. If you can give us a follow on YouTube as well, you can be notified when the next episode is up. And of course, we're very active on Twitter, so you can catch us there too at Get Puck Podcast. And of course, throw out some comments and things like this. We love interacting with everybody who takes the time to shoot a message to us. So yeah, and that's what I think that's what we're going to end on tonight. You got a final thought? I'll throw a little something out there, a little something in the ether, huh?
Yeah, I just want that trade deadline constipation to unclog, if you will, and just
it'd be nice. There's some big names out there that still haven't moved, man. The Patrick Kanes, the Chitrins, the Eric Carlson, Timo Meyer. Where's he going? Is it New Jersey? Is it St. Louis? So there's a lot of stuff.
Latest rumor for Carlson is that Edmonton might be out because they just can't make the money work.
He costs too much money. He's not being traded. But anyways, all that to say, thanks very much for taking the time, everybody, for listening. Hopefully, next episode we can get our guy, our third man, our Dave back. He's a busy dude. He got lots going on. So hopefully we can get all the whole gang back together. And until then, for Vito, I'm Matt, and this was Get Pucked.